Good morning. Welcome, everyone. So good to have you with us. We hope you are all healthy and safe. Given the upheaval in our businesses and our personal lives, many of you are wondering, what's next? Every day, including today, we move one step closer to our recovery. For those of you who are unfamiliar with us, we're a management consulting firm. We're based in Los Angeles. We specialize exclusively in strategic planning. Our firm's helped over 140 companies craft their business strategies, and we work with management teams to help them decide what to do next. Today's topic, how sales and marketing are changing as a result of COVID-19, seems to have struck a nerve. We have over 200 people registered for our webinar today, which I think is indicative of how rapidly things are changing. A little later in the broadcast, I will offer some perspective on how to improve sales productivity in this environment, which of course is unusual and completely unprecedented. And also we will furnish a recording of today's webinar later today. But first, it is my honor to introduce our featured speaker this morning. Thomas Young has worked in digital marketing for over 20 years. Tom is the founder of Intuitive Websites, a digital marketing agency based in Denver, Colorado, a veteran speaker who has also authored 2 books, including Winning the Website War. Tom, welcome to Optimize Webinars.
Thanks so much for having me, Mark. It's really a pleasure to be here and be part of this Optimize Webinar series. And thanks to you, Mark, for doing this and putting this information out. In many cases, putting the information out when people need it the most. So let's get into the presentation. I have basically taken my presentation that is very strong on fundamentals and on processes around digital marketing and tailored it to the current environment for us today, the current business environment, and in dealing with the coronavirus threat. And we'll kick off by going through this presentation and diving deep into these fundamentals. And then I'll turn it over to Mark to wrap up and then also answer your questions. So feel free to put your questions in at any time and we'll get to those at the end. So let's jump in with some data and information for you. And as I was preparing for this presentation, I thought to myself, this kind of information now is so much more important than it's ever been. And I'm sure that if HubSpot were to look at this data again, they would realize that in today's environment, these numbers have even gone up. And the bottom line from this slide that you can take away is that folks that are paying attention to how they communicate digitally right now are going to do better when we recover, and they're going to do better right now. And in fact, the business climate that we're in is a very strange one. Through my work with Vistage, through our client base, and through a lot of the things that I'm doing, you can see how some companies are prospering, other companies are struggling, and a lot of companies are in between. So the challenges for all those businesses really is to do digital marketing better than they ever have in the past. And what I want to do today in the next 30 minutes or so is give you the structure and the foundation to get there. And I want to also stress with the slide you're looking at now that when you do this, you will see business results. Now, I am a big fan of processes, and I'm sure Mark is as well, because processes help you implement and drive your strategies. And when we talk about digital strategies, process is everything. And I love this quote from Edward Deming, which is basically that to really understand what you're doing, you have to understand a process. I'm going to give you a process today for digital marketing, and let's jump in and look at that. When a lot of people see this, they think, well, of course, this is common sense. But I can tell you right now, it is not common sense in practice. I know we know to do these things, but we don't always do that, and there's reasons why. I'm going to get into each of these in a little bit more detail, but basically, this digital strategy comes first. Understanding what your value is, how you bring that value, and in today's climate, how you're going to help people more powerfully than you've ever helped them in the past. And helping people not because you're in it to make money. The money will come. Don't worry about that. You're in it because you're here to help people and their businesses, and for them, maybe even in their improving the quality of their life as well. That's what the digital strategy is about. And then the step 2 is how you communicate that strategy, how you go about putting together communication plans and content to do that. And then how you set up a structure of inbound marketing, because you can't go knock on people's doors and get their attention now. They have to research and find you, and that's inbound marketing. And then the fourth part of this is how you measure what's happening, how you measure the engagement, and how you measure the return as far as folks that that follow you or engage with you or become part of your loyal customer base. We're going to talk about that in just a second. So let's start first with digital strategy. And to get our arms around digital strategy, I want you to think about it's the translation of what you do really well. Digital strategy is writing down and translating what your company does really well. And today's environment is forcing companies to think about that even more than ever. And in fact, they can't do it in person. You have to now do it virtually. So how is it that, what are the services and products that you provide? What value do they bring? And how can you start to translate that value to a virtual environment? And to get there, here's an action plan for business leaders. And some of this stuff's counterintuitive. You probably haven't thought about this until you saw this slide. And that's the idea that for you to translate what you do well to digital, you have to know what digital is. The time for not understanding what Google is about, or not really understanding how to use Zoom, or how to do a shared room in Zoom, or how do I share my cam and how do you share yours? All of that's got to change now. Digital has to be as easy for you as calling someone on the phone. And so understand digital marketing fundamentals. And I'm going to give you at the end of my presentation a bunch of resources where you can go and subscribe and get great information so you can start understanding the digital environment we're in. And then, of course, the team. The team is huge, and I'm going to talk about the team coming up. And I think that one of the ways that you understand digital strategy is by understanding digital data. And to understand digital data, I'm going to challenge you all to have a Zoom meeting where the purpose of that Zoom meeting is to look at analytics and data coming from what you're doing in digital. Look at your stats in social, look at your engagements around Facebook posts, look at your email stats. And when you start to do that, you'll start to ask questions that lead you towards strategic answers. Here's some more digital strategy common sense, right? So I mentioned that it's a strategic translation of the value you bring. What's real interesting about this whole digital world is you can do a competitive analysis that's very insightful. And I would encourage you to look at what your competitors are doing and at least do what they're doing or find ways to do it better with your own personal twist, right? And one of the things that we've noticed with our clients is there are still many, many websites that have not even mentioned anything on their homepage about the new business environment we're in. That's not appropriate. You have got to do that. You have got to put on your homepage a link to a landing page that explains how your business has been modified and changed, right? And you have to do all this in a very simple and clear way, and in a way that you're speaking in the language of your customers or your target market. So this is some digital common sense that drives strategic purpose. I also think that this is a great time to get target market feedback. It's probably more important to do that now than ever. We work with a few clients that you got to imagine that their business model hasn't changed, it's gone away. So anyone that's doing live events and scheduling live events for 2020, that business model is just not there. So they have got to figure out how to do this virtually. And one of the best ways to get answers to those questions is to talk to the people that will be attending these virtual events and getting target market feedback. So once you've gone through and figured out, how are you going to show this value and what is that value specifically and how's the value changing and how's your messaging changing, now it comes around, well, let's get that message out there and let's use the tools we have available to get the message out there. And that's step 2, strategic communication. There are 5 elements of strategic communication. One, I'm sure you know about, which is, of course, messaging and content. But there are others, too, that say a lot about how you're going to deal with this new environment. The graphic design process that you use right now is critical. Your graphic design process should be in alignment with the target market you're trying to reach. This includes your website designs, the graphics that you use for infographics or for information. Understand your target market. The graphic design that you use is not about your graphic designer. It's about the needs of the target market. Usability is more important than ever. And the challenges around usability are critical because you cannot engage if people can't figure out how to use your website and how to get to that important content. Video is going to play a huge role this year in not just in digital marketing, but in getting messages out because the fact of the matter is a lot of people just will not read on websites. And when it comes to getting this content out, you have to understand that some people are going to really want to see videos. The challenge is, if we're all working in our home offices, how do you put a video together? And that's a good question. So there are certainly video production companies out there that can help you with how to shoot a video on your iPhone, how to set it up properly, how to do all the nuances that you have to do, lighting, sound, background, all of that. But I think you need to be thinking about video. And in fact, if you have content and information that's extremely valuable, just realize that 20, 30% or more of your target market may not get that content unless it's in a video form. And then finally, technology platforms are critical to your communication, because you have to have a technology platform that your employee base and your team base can make content changes on, and you're not relying on a lot of folks that are not part of your business to make minor content changes. That's why we build websites in WordPress. We train our clients how to use WordPress. These technology platforms cannot be barriers to you communicating quickly and immediately as things change. And I want you to be thinking about the value from digital content. So when you start to write this digital strategy out, be thinking about how your company helps first. And one of the ways to do that is get inside your head, get inside the head of your target market. What is your target market experiencing right now? One of the things that we're all going to start seeing, and I've started to see it this week, is that you're going to run into people that have been touched by the virus. So that for many of us, the virus was a thing on the news that we heard about, read about, but now in the next 2 weeks, you're going to know somebody that knows someone, or it's going to impact your family directly. So because of that, the best folks at digital marketing do the best at getting inside of the head of their target market, understanding what they're going through, being empathetic to what they're going through, and then helping them first. And that's what this digital content has to do in today's environment. We have to do that not only with video, like I mentioned, but also with very clear taglines and clear banners, because people scan content digitally, and then use the content to help drive engagement. So if you're helping them, give them a resource or give them something they can, go to the next level with. And then of course, make sure your content's optimized for search engines so they can find you in inbound. And then speak in the language of your reader. So all of us at our companies have an internal language we use, and we need to now more than ever write in the language of your readers. I'm going to go through a few of these slides fairly quickly, and I want you to know that the slides will be available for you so you can spend more time with them. In fact, these slides make for a great outline for a digital marketing plan. But understanding what users want in this time especially is really, really critical. And you can take these bullet points and you and your team can write a strategy and an approach to each of these bullet points. And I encourage you to do that. This is what users want when they come to digital and interact with digital content. And then the next slide is what users do, right? So there's two components. What do they want? And then what do they do? How do they interact with your content? So it's critical to know these things, and know these things as you look at your website, making changes to your website now, or your social media posts, or however you're interacting with customers and clients. Okay, so once you have the digital strategy outlined and you have the communication strategy and plans in place, then we can go to step 3, which is the concept of inbound marketing and attracting folks to you, right? And this is going to be so important now, because the work you're doing right now will be seen months down the road when we start to recover. So as soon as people get, if you're in a business right now that is more or less on hold, when all of that starts to get released in a few months, you want to be there. You want your content to be there. That's around inbound marketing. And HubSpot has a great slide I love to share with folks about the laws of inbound marketing, the laws of marketing today, which is the idea you have an infinite audience of one. And today, because we're all in our homes and working from our homes for the most part, this has been accelerated tremendously. So you have to understand that not only do we have this infinite audience of one, but we have people that are ready to absorb your content. They're not stuck in highways commuting. They're not in meetings at their office right now that maybe aren't that valuable. They're at home, and many of them have to get their job done and have to produce. So you are there to support them. This is a real important key concept in today's environment. And there's 4 laws of inbound marketing I want to cover with you, because this is really an approach or culture shift that needs to happen in your company. And digital's driving this today because of the coronavirus. And that's like we mentioned, law number 1 is that customers research and find you. And Google's supporting this with their data. HubSpot supports it with their data. And this data is accelerating this year. I'm sure we'll see updates from Google soon on the level and amounts of research that's going on as people work from home. And I want you to be thinking today about how your digital marketing funnel is changing. So the digital marketing funnel was, super important a couple months ago, and it's a great way to generate leads for salespeople. But now the digital marketing funnel is incredibly important, because what you're building today is going to be used for months or years to come. And here are a few fundamental elements of the digital marketing funnel. All of you should have at least these elements in place, or be working on plans to get them started. The top of the funnel is still the website visit. Website visits is still one of the best parts of engagement in the digital funnel. Moving through to social media interaction, email newsletter subscribes. I don't know about everyone else out there, but my email has been blowing up over the last couple of weeks, and I think it's a good thing. I think it's been really good to get those emails. The Vistage network that I'm part of is also blowing up because everybody's needing information. Your email newsletter should be adding valuable content to that kind of storm of communication we're seeing. The last thing you want to do with your email newsletter is have anything that's, about how great you are and about, kind of the traditional advertising approach. It needs to be about value in today's times. And the concept of virtual events. Virtual events are for real. They're happening and they're getting high engagement. And virtual events can work. They can actually work really well. And in many cases work even better than in-person events. And I kind of like to think of it as that, Zoom is like TV in a lot of ways. We love to watch TV. Well, when you're on a Zoom call, it's kind of like watching TV. It's kind of like watching reality TV. And the stars are you and your company. And here we are. This is real life, and we're watching it play out in front of us on our computer screens. The key part of this is that people will engage, and if you have value, they will get benefit from that. And then ultimately, the end of the funnel is a virtual meeting with the salesperson, and that's what this funnel is there to do. And a great tool for understanding your top of funnel, especially, is the Google Search Console. So if you're not using and on the Google Search Console today, you really need to get on this. This is the only place where you can see the keywords that are being used to find your website. It's a direct communication with Google. All the SEO apps use the Search Console to drive what they do, but it gives you a clear understanding of how people are looking for you, what Google thinks about your website, what keywords Google thinks are most appropriate for your website. And these days, it's a great resource for you. So everybody needs to get on that. I want to talk about law number 2, build a loyal following, as a key part of these 4 laws today. The client or the companies that are out there doing the best work at showing trust, empathy, and understanding, at helping and servicing, are the companies that are going to be the strongest ones coming out of this new business reality. So I want you to take this slide and share it with your team and start using it as a way of getting inside the head of your target market, and use this slide to drive content that will get results for you. Put more people in the funnel, more people into sales conversations down the road, or maybe even immediately. I do want to, a couple things I want to say about this is that people are very, very aware of whether they're going to be sold or whether they're getting value. So you want to lead with value. They also are very much into believing what they want to believe, right? And so the coronavirus has kind of brought us all together once again to really consider what facts and information are all about, because you can't play with your life by ignoring what, the facts that we're seeing right now. So I encourage you to do that with your business as well. And what you'll do is you'll attract people to you that are in agreement with that, in agreement with your values and your perspectives. And that's a really good thing in these times. 2 resources that are fantastic at building loyal followings. One is MailChimp, and there's several companies like MailChimp out there, Constant Contact and so forth. But we like MailChimp because it's easy to use, and there's a free version, and then you can pay as you go. But MailChimp's a great resource. Also, one of the best resources on the planet for this, for building loyal following, is HubSpot, and we work very closely with HubSpot. And this is a good time to start thinking about these two resources and getting them integrated. It's great if you have some downtime with your marketing team right now, because it's a great project for them to take on, which is getting up to speed in HubSpot, learning more about it, trying, they both HubSpot and MailChimp have free versions that you can start with. So I encourage you to really get into these. And then one of the most powerful things that HubSpot does is it provides reporting on your digital channel. And if you pay attention to these things and you drive content, you will see business growth. It is a fact. So I've given you a lot of information so far, and I just also want to stress how important it is to keep everything simple. So as you go through this and as you do your planning and start to put your communication together, there are some laws of simplicity that I want you to follow. And keep in mind that the most powerful digital marketing company on the planet is Google, and they also have the most simple, basic website. That's not an accident. It's strategic for them. They know that if they make their website complicated, they will lose users. If they lose users, they have no business. Nobody pays to be on Google. We all volunteer to use Google, and they understand that. We could all volunteer to not use it tomorrow. So because of that, Google keeps it simple, and you should too. There are some rules of simplicity that I'm going to share with you. I'm not going to go through every one of these, but I want you to follow that 10 out of 10 rule, which is that 10 out of 10 people that read your content, that see your homepage, that see your social post, they need to understand what you just said. Don't put social posts out there that leave people guessing what you're saying, or a social post that means something to you but doesn't mean anything to the reader that just read it. One of the ways to get around that is by using photos with captions and using videos that are very clear in what you're saying. Your homepage tagline is a key part of this, and many of you will now have to change your taglines to mention something about COVID-19 or the virus or what we're going through. Use concrete words, speak in the language of your target market, make sure you meet that 10 out of 10 rule, and then link this tagline to a landing page that offers people more information. Great resource for keeping it simple is Steve Krug's book, Don't Make Me Think. You'll get a lot of value from reading this book. It's a very easy read. It's very visual. And then all of this has to be mobile ready. Now we are seeing, more people working at their desks at home, and you're seeing people on their laptops again, but a lot of people are on mobile. In fact, 50 to 60% of consumers now take in content on mobile devices. It's even more than the slide that you see here, and I'm sure this is growing as well. The reason people are on mobile is because they want information now. They don't want to wait. They want it now while it's in their hand. We're watching voice search. Voice search has not taken off to the degree we think it might, and we still have potential for that. But for now, it's mobile search with typed in keywords into Google. Like I said, I'm going to go through these slides quickly. I'll have these bullet points available for you on a download. One of the best resources for dealing with mobile is to build your website in a responsive theme in WordPress, so that that website adapts to any size device. And also, these themes are inexpensive. You don't have to spend money on a ton of development time to get this theme going. There are 6 inbound methods, and I'm going to go over these fairly quick, but I want you to have these in your digital plan and make sure that you're addressing the new reality through all 6 of these channels. And I want to give you more data on search engines to start. We wouldn't be a good digital marketing presentation without information on search engines. This slide right here is your basic fundamental slide on what you have to do to be found in Google. There's a lot of information out there about SEO, and many different companies, do SEO services and so forth. But remember, we talked about, for you to be good at digital strategy, you need to understand it. This is the slide to understand. And in many cases, this is a slide to share with your SEO firm and ask them, are we doing these things? And then you can go to your own website and look and see if you're doing these things. But this is the key slide. Email marketing is critical, as I mentioned before. I will say that the most important thing with your email marketing is that you have content that's valuable, content that hits home and is needed right now. Do not flood the internet with now with email marketing that's not relevant. I get asked this question a lot in my business talks: how often should we email? And it depends. It depends on your list, your target market, and so forth. But I do recommend a minimum of 1 newsletter per month. In today's environment, you might be okay with 1 to 2 per week. And I do want to share with you a little bit about content marketing. Now, content marketing is critical because the more content you have on your website, the better your chance of getting found. And this is data coming from Google. And I'll get right to the elephant in the room, which is, how are we going to get all this content written? How can we get 50 more pages on our website? Well, you have to have a content writer on your team. Your marketing team has got to have a content writer. This person could be outsourced, but it's a critical part of your team. And if you write content, it lasts forever on the internet, and it has higher conversion rates and higher follow rates. So I'm going to make sure you spend some time with this slide too, because it's incredibly valuable. Social media in today's environment, I think, is best used to tell your story. I think it's best used to tell stories of what's happening at your company and to keep it visual, right? That for most of us in B2B marketing, this is where social media works the best. For you, as your content action items, it's time to start thinking of yourself as a thought leader, as a content publisher, and put together a content marketing calendar. I would imagine that you would need to do this almost week by week because of how things change, but this is the time to get on this now. Influencer marketing is the concept of folks that will send your target market to you because they influence that target market. And influencer marketing, the key principles behind this is understand that you really are going to get best results from influencers if you develop a personal relationship with them. There's no just link exchanges or, oh, I met someone online and we just exchanged links. No, get to know them. Find out what their business is about. Provide them with content that's valuable. Then that relationship is what's going to drive results. So we're going to start to wind down here with step 4. And I'm going to go over this fairly quickly, but step 4 is the idea of measuring the ROI based on a conversion strategy. Everything that happens in digital is tracked and is measured. And this data then becomes the scorecard for how well you're doing with your marketing. And just by monitoring this stuff, just by having meetings to look at your scorecard, you start to move in the right direction. And it's amazing to me that many companies still don't do this. It's a key action item for you. There are key digital metrics on this slide. I'm not going to go through them all, but if you're only monitoring these things, then it's a great starting point for you. I also want to share with you digital marketing budgets, what it costs to do digital marketing work. And then now that you have these budgets, you can start running ROI examples. And I've got an ROI example I'm going to share with you. And I do want to also just real quick note on this budget. This is from my own personal experience in this field now for about 20 years. This is what it costs to work with an agency and to work with folks they're pretty good at what they do. You can certainly get much cheaper rates, but you're probably going to be with a freelance person, and then then the results vary, and you may not have the level of project management you need. So anyway, now that we have budgets in mind, you can run an ROI. And because everything's trackable in digital marketing, you can track each area through to conversion. And the question to ask then is, what do I control in these areas? And you'll find that you control quite a few of these areas. And by doing some of the things we talked about, you can impact your conversion rate. And if you impact your conversion rate and train your sales team to sell really well, especially virtually, then you'll see that your ROI could be really, really good. And in fact, I think that today, this is marketing. Today, this is marketing. And in our new reality, it's more important than ever. Let's talk about how to get this work done, and then we'll start to wrap up and Mark will jump in with his part. There are 3 disciplines that have to come together to make digital marketing work. And because these three disciplines are so different, I mean, could they be any more different? Look at this: marketing, technology, and design. Because they couldn't be any more different, conflicts arise. And those conflicts lead and result in issues with digital marketing, which I'm sure you've all experienced, websites that never seem to launch, content that never seems to get written, confusion, and so forth. This happens because of misalignment between these three disciplines. And it also happens because of lack of project management, which is the key to success in digital marketing. Just looking at the slides I presented to you today, you could see the amount of action items that come out of every slide. Who's going to manage those action items and sign them to people and set due dates? That's your project manager. Within this kind of hierarchy of responsibilities are more or less 8 hats that people wear. And the hats on the left are more internal. The hats on the right are more external. And there's some trade-off between the two. The things to watch out for is that, you know, a person that wears a lot of different hats doing a lot of this stuff, probably not the best approach in 2020. Maybe that was okay a few years ago, but now we have specialists in each area, and the team can really come together well when you let that specialist do what they're good at and then have the project manager coordinate it, right? The other thing that's key is that somebody's got to be the decision maker. Digital marketing by committee usually ends up being seen as a cluttered website, content that doesn't make sense, and so forth. Someone needs to drive this process, and that's the digital marketing decision maker. On the external side, you might spend more money on photography, video, and some of this, some of the audio work that you're doing than anything else. You also may spend money on content, but that's money well spent. That's money well spent. It's money that used to be spent years ago in technology, and now it's spent more in communication and ways to communicate more effectively. So I'm going to wrap up now. We're going to get to your questions in just a second. I've been watching the questions come in. Here is your immediate action plan. So if you haven't taken some notes, that's fine. I'll send you your notes on these slides. Number one, you got to increase your communications in this time. If you are communicating something of value that helps people, they want it. So increase your communications. Make sure your website's been updated if it hasn't already with what you're doing, and make sure that stays updated week to week. Focus on email, blogs, and social media as 3 key points of content. Look into marketing automation and taking your marketing automation to another level. For example, if you're using HubSpot now, get into HubSpot scoring. Get into HubSpot campaigns and workflows. Take all that to another level. Set up virtual meetings and events. If you have a mindset that you cannot do this virtually, I'm going to challenge you. But pretty much any event that you've been thinking about can be done virtually. So start working on that today. And when you do a virtual event, think through the graphics, the PDFs, the slides, and so forth you're going to use. Those are now branding representations of your company. They need to be really good quality, and they need to be first class. Get ready, get those videos going, because not everybody reads, and make sure you have website landing pages that are relevant to what's happening today. Got another slide of digital marketing action items. I'm big into action items. And these are more things that are fundamental that you should be doing, and complement what we just saw. And I have a resource for you. So this is my book, Winning the Website War. You can see it at winningthewebsitewar.com. This book goes into great detail on the 4 steps we've just reviewed, and is a great resource for you as well. I'm happy to send anybody that wants a free PDF. I'll send you a PDF of the book. Just email me at tom@intuitivewebsites.com, and I'll send that out to you. Also, more resources. So I've been doing this for 20 years, and in those 20 years, I've found a lot of really cool resources. I'm going to save you a ton of time and the time I spent finding these. Neil Patel is great for SEO, by the way. Just announced that his Uber Suggest tool is more or less free, and that tool is fantastic. So here are great resources for you. So reach out if I can be of assistance, and I'm going to turn it over now to Mark, and he is going to take it from there, and then we'll finish up with your questions in just a few minutes. Okay, Mark, take it away.
Can you see my screen now?
I can see your screen and I can hear you.
All right, awesome. Good stuff, Tom. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So at a time when our entire world has changed seemingly overnight, many of us are going to have to pivot in terms of how we're thinking about sales and marketing. And in the midst of the chaos, these are some ways where you can become a more successful salesperson or lead a more effective sales team. So I think the first thing that we really all have to do is wrap our head around the problem. So, you know, virtual is going to become a state of being, and we're going to adopt it with some permanency, you know, after we get through this crisis. I'm sorry, my computer has locked up. Okay. So one thing that I think is really, really important if you're a salesperson is you need to establish a routine. So every single day you need to calendar your customer appointments, the times that you're going to be catching up with your existing customers, and if appropriate, have dedicated time for cold calling. And I think that includes setting some boundaries with your family in terms of this structure, which will actually only help you to be a better spouse and a better parent. And if account management's part of your role, our first goal is always to keep the customers that we already have. And if we can sell them more, even better. Some companies have actually redirected their sales teams from acquiring any new logos to only focusing on the businesses that we already have. We know that we are 5 times more likely to sell to an existing customer than we are to a new one, and that's at 0 acquisition cost. So if you want to expand your business with your existing customers, one strategy to consider is selling on the edge of the offer. So this is an example of one of our clients that have been in business about 12 years, and the industry that they decided that they wanted to disrupt was selling printing supplies into small regional printers who traditionally had bought product from local distributors, and they thought e-commerce would be a more kind of seamless distribution method. So along the way, they had this kind of epiphany about 5 years ago when they realized if we're going to sell printers printing supplies, we might as well also be selling them the actual printers. So they partnered with a European company and started offering the printing presses, at which time they kind of had this epiphany, which is, well, if we're going to sell them the printing presses, we can also be selling them things like warranty, configuration, inventory, and financing, which is particularly profitable. So by focusing on ancillary services, you do a few things. First of all, you make your offer more sticky. Customers are more likely to need you over a period of time if you're selling them multiple services as opposed to being a one-trick pony. Also, you make your solutions more consultative, changing the role of the salesperson in the process. And ancillary services are more profitable than your core services will be. So for a whole host of reasons, selling ancillary services is something that can really deepen your relationship with your customers. Here's the problem that most companies have. There is a lot of noise around the fact that there are some salespeople that feel that cross-selling is somehow unseemly. We have another client who sells a product through e-commerce, and whenever you go to buy their product, they upsell you the opportunity to also buy a kit that applies the product itself. And what's really interesting is that the net promoter score on the kit is much higher than it is on the product itself, meaning that they get more satisfaction from their clients when they sell them the total solution as opposed to one product at a time. So in terms of acquiring new customers, there's 3 primary ways that we typically do that. I love this analogy of seeds, nets, and spears. Seeds is the salespeople going out and kind of spreading the word and networking. Traditionally, we've done that through things like trade shows and kind of local networking in the events, but now we're doing that virtually through things like LinkedIn and through video. Nets is your more strategic marketing effort, most of the things that Tom just described. And spears is the targeted campaigns that our salespeople should have, where they're going after very specific targeted customers in target markets. And I would point out that we have different acquisition costs, conversion rates, and lifetime values depending on the acquisition source. And it's very important, as Tom illustrated, that we have a dashboard and know exactly how successful our sales and marketing efforts are so that we can come up with the right selling strategy into the future. Now, a lot of you are going to look at this slide and you're going to try to decipher all of the graph and the lines and the arrows, and I'm going to suggest that you not do that and understand the point of the slide, which is there is a lot going on in the customer journey. It is very complex. In today's world, what success looks like is a prospect happens onto our website, or maybe they're referred, or maybe they're made aware of us through our newsletter. And they do a fair amount of research on our company. One fairly controversial statistic that's being bandied about at the moment is the average B2B customer does not even talk to a salesperson until they are roughly 57% through this journey. But say that the prospect is interested in blue widgets. The second that the prospect hits our website, that should be dumped into our CRM. We know what they downloaded, we know what page they view, and we know that they are specifically interested in blue widgets. And then they contact the salesperson who is able to book an appointment, let's say 6 weeks from now. Our drip marketing campaign to that prospect is specifically only about blue widgets. It's very targeted, it's very well timed in such a way to enable more productivity from that salesperson on their sales call. And then afterwards, the drip campaign that follows the sales call is also extremely targeted on the type of information that is appropriate after the sales call. So the point of the slide that I'm trying to make is that in today's world, coordination between sales and marketing is much more important than it's ever been before. And as Tom alluded to, there's a lot of specialization today in marketing, not only in digital marketing, but your marketing team is going to have the ability to conduct market research, manage social media, do the analytics, understand various channels, branding, and so on. So you're going to need to have a whole brain trust of people who are able to manage your marketing effectively. And then on the sales side, I really feel that today, to be a contemporary sales manager and have a successful sales team, you know, that's no longer the person who's bringing donuts to the client and is solely about relationships. I'm not discounting the importance of relationships. They're very important. They always will be. But today, especially, you know, as we all embrace more solution selling, the type of those relationships, the way we manage those relationships has changed. And in order to manage an entire sales force, your sales manager really has to be a pipeline-driven person. They are the type of person that understands that they couldn't possibly succeed without a CRM. They are the type of person who understands how marketing automation works, and they embrace using these marketing tools to make their sales team more successful. And also, I think that sales managers are realizing the importance of bringing in other stakeholders and partners, such as engineering and operations, much earlier in the process, so that you create this entire integrated sales and marketing method, as opposed to the salespeople or kind of activities to those particular markets. So, especially if you're competing with larger companies or you're selling into large companies, it's really important that you kind of have all hands on deck and you're directing all of your spend, whether that be CEO or pay-per-click or traditional marketing methods, and your sales scripts and your white papers and your testimonials and everything towards several markets where you can become specialists. So typically we would rather see customers in 2 or 3 niche markets than trying to address really large markets where all the competition tends to show up. So this slide would be an example of an evaluation that we would expect our clients to do on a given target market, and to know which tiers, which types of customers might be most appropriate for them. And there's usually 4 or 5 variables that govern whether a particular market would be the best for the client. So, you know, through the strategic process, we encourage our clients to employ this level of rigor to really understand what markets they want to be in, which subsegments they think that they can capitalize on, and as I said, direct all of their energy into those markets. So in order to be successful today, kind of in this virtual environment, I think that there's a few key points that we should consider. I would offer this observation when selling services, but it's certainly true in this virtual environment, even if you're selling products. Whenever you're selling something that's intangible, it's really, really important that you make it tangible. So customers are actually a lot easier to reach today. They don't have the same gatekeepers in place to repel salespeople. And I think there are things you can do that Tom alluded to earlier. So anything that you used to do physically, you could do virtually now, such as having a virtual breakfast or a virtual lunch or a virtual cocktail hour or a virtual trade show. I've actually found this particular idea to be very effective. I've booked a lunch with almost all of our primary clients over the next couple of weeks. So I've just reached out and said, hey, do you have 20 minutes to have a salad with me? A guy's got to eat. And I'm really finding that our clients are responding to kind of having that casual conversation with them in a non-threatening way. If you used to do things like office tours, those are the types of things you could be doing with videos now, like a virtual tour of your office, or maybe you're showing a particular part of the product, just like you would in a trade show. And also, as mentioned, Tom mentioned earlier, content is king. So anything that you can be doing in terms of webinars and blogging and social media will just help you to kind of reinforce this message. I'm also finding the community boards are very hot right now. People are looking for answers. So this is a time where you can position as a subject matter expert if you can find kind of the right places to do that. Certainly LinkedIn, is probably the most important social media platform for a lot of salespeople on the call today. And then finally, I just want to talk a little bit about working within the virtual environment and some best practices. Building trust virtually is a lot harder than building trust face-to-face. So in a world of virtual work, you have to get the technology right. Tom mentioned this earlier. With all due respect, your age or lack of technical acumen can't be an excuse for knowing how these tools are used. And I would say that Zoom has become the standard. So unfortunately, if you're on WebEx or GoToMeeting or some other kind of novel software solution, you are making your client work harder if you gravitate to other software products at the moment. So do things like make sure that you have a professional background. Make sure that you have a kind of a warm-up call with other members of your team. And just like you might walk through roles and responsibilities in a sales call physically, you need to do the same thing online. It might even be more important. So make sure that you're controlling the visuals, what people see when they sign on. Make sure you're controlling the transitions well. And make sure you rehearse your script. People have shorter attention spans now. The meetings that used to be 60 minutes, they're going to have to be 20 minutes. And make sure that going into every call, you have a structure for that call. So it's what you send the client before the meeting. It's having your agenda during this sales call. It's wrapping the action items with intention. It's sending up a follow-up email after the call, recapping those action items. The similar structure that you'd want to have to be successful in a physical call, I would say it's even more important that you have that information today. And of course, entering all of your notes in your CRM. And here's my final point on sales, and I offer this last because it's the most important one. Virtual sales calls do not lend themselves to long PowerPoint decks. There needs to be less presenting and more listening. Selling is listening, and if you're talking more than 20% in any sales call, you are losing. So you need to prove that you've heard your clients, not only during the call, but what you do after the call with your summary and your follow-up. And here's a little trick that I think is useful. End every sales call with this question. Is there anything else I can do to help you today? Finally, I kind of want to end with the same message I've been repeating time and time again. in all the webinars I've participated in the last 10 days. I've probably done 6 or 7 of these. And that is, I just want to say, I know there's a lot of chaos at the moment, but this is the United States of America. We have resources unlike any other country in the world. We have American ingenuity, and we shall overcome. So with that, we're going to take some questions. If your management team needs help figuring out what they're going to do to reset coming out of this crisis, you need to do any contingency planning, you want to reevaluate your growth plan, we'll be sending you a follow-up email with our contact information. So please let us know if there's anything we can do to serve you. We'll also be having another webinar next Thursday. That's April 9th at 11 o'clock Pacific time, entitled From Chaos to Clarity, The Case for Optimism. And we'll be talking about things like managing your wealth, your business, and new opportunities during this period of uncertainty. So with that, we shall take some questions.
Yeah, a few questions have come in, Mark. Wanted to also thank everybody for the kind words, and just once again, yeah, follow up with us directly, and you can email me at tom@intuitivewebsites.com, and yes, I will send out a PDF of the book. One of the questions that we heard or that we saw come in was about, pivoting the message. What happens if you have a marketing message and now that marketing message has to change, and should it change? And my recommendation is that yes, all marketing messages are going to be somewhat different now. What are your thoughts about that, Mark?
Well, I think the marketing message might be different, but also the entire value proposition might be different.
Right.
So we might think more broadly than that, right? So, we always start with the value chain analysis and understanding every step in the chain and how your company delivers value in the kind of the broader understanding of the industry you're in. And then once you and your management team and your sales and marketing team have complete clarity on what business you're in, then you might have to pivot on message. But I think you mentioned a couple things earlier, Tom. We have to be brief, we have to be empathetic, and we have to be humble. Summarizing it is kind of like, people first and help first, right? And your message needs to be about that. And then a couple of questions came in around the virtual lunches, and maybe I know for us, when we check in with clients, we are certainly asking, how can we help you? But the other thing, we're looking at clients right now, they're looking to us. So they're saying, what do you think we should be doing right now? So, I think that for you that in business today, be ready to help your clients deal. Your space and your industry. So, be ready to make those recommendations in ways they understand. What do you talk about in those virtual lunches? Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about those, Mark. Yeah, well, to your point, it's just an opportunity to listen and be empathetic and let the client unload, because so many of them are, they've had to make very, very hard decisions, and they really want someone to talk to. And then we're having to figure out how we pivot in terms of providing the solutions that we provide. So I think one thing that we've learned is probably doing them in smaller chunks, right, is helping people manage week to week. So the one thing that I've been trying to mention to my clients in the lunches is that I've been helping them reevaluate what their structure is, how they structure the business and how they structure their time, and what success looks like for them. I think is very different than it was a month ago.
It's a great point. And you may have seen this in the presentation, but I've also been recommending that clients start doing things that they've been putting off in digital marketing. And we hear this all the time, like, oh, I've been meaning to get that blog started, I've just been too busy, or I've been meaning to get those videos going, I've just been too busy. Now's the time, get them going. People want this stuff. They're ready for it. One of our clients launched his first video last week. And not only did the video get a ton of traction, it was just, people started sharing it all over email. We had an attorney in California that has a large estate planning company. He launched a video within just a few days. The video had hundreds and going. Get that content going, the stuff you've been putting off. And don't be afraid to reach out to content writers. Another question was around how to find a content writer. So there's websites out there like writersaccess.com. My agency, Intuitive Websites, has content writers on staff as well. Most companies do not have content writers as part of their team. Nobody likes to write content. We didn't like it when we were in school. We don't like it now. However, in a new reality, content is so important that you're going to have to find partners to help you write this content. The good news is it's not incredibly expensive. You can find writers and writers access that are very affordable. And keep in mind, any content you write and prepare, or videos that you prepare, it's permanent online, and it'll continue to get views, weeks from now. Several other questions came in. A lot of comments about the presentation being very timely and very good. Thanks again for that. There was a question about the sales percentage stat, which I believe was around when you mentioned, Mark, that you wanted to be listening 20% of the time, I believe.
Right. You want to be listening 80% of the time.
Listening 80% of the time, that's right.
Yeah. You want to be talking 20%. I'm saying if you're talking more than 20% of the time, you're losing is what I'm saying. So what I had a pretty successful sales career before I started my firm. And this is what I always found. Every sales call I went into, and I still practice this day, every call I have a script of at least 10 or 12 questions that I'm asking the client that are very high level and strategic before I even think about talking about our company or who we're about, because the entire time that you're asking the client questions, they are giving you the formula to sell them. So you have to start there.
Absolutely. I guess you could almost be thinking about that during the virtual lunch, is the idea of, how much am I talking? How much is my client talking?
Yeah.
Really good.
But what I love about the virtual lunch is what you're really trying to do is get them in a more natural state, without their defenses up.
That's right. That's right. There's been a lot going on around Vistage around how to build team unity and morale during this time. And my company's going to have a virtual happy hour later today. So we're doing our best.
Right. All right. Well, we need to wrap. That time flew by very quickly. Tom, thank you so much. Great job. Great work. I certainly love your style. Very comfortable. I want to remind everyone we will have another webinar next Thursday, the 9th. We'll send you a link with the recording. If you got value today, we hope you'll sign up for Chaos to Clarity, the case for optimism. Thank you much for joining us. Be healthy and safe, and have a great weekend.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.